cyfarfod i drafod pleidleisio 16 ac 17 a croeso i bawb i'r digwyddiad yma, y cyntaf o'i fath sydd yn trafod pleidleisio 16 ers i ddeddf Senedd ac etholiadau Cymru ddod i rym fis Mai eleni, sy'n rhoi hawl i bobl ifanc Cymru 16 ac 17 oed i bleidleisio yn etholiadau'r Senedd y flwyddyn nesaf. Dyma un o'r newidiadau mwyaf i broses democrataidd Cymru yn yr hanner canrif yma. In next year's Senedd elections, 16 and 17-year-olds will, for the first time, have an influence in deciding on the members who will represent them in the next Welsh Parliament and will give young people a voice over the decisions that will define their future. Today, the Senedd has launched a series of resources for young people, teachers, lecturers and youth workers to educate, to inform young people about votes at 16 and the upcoming election next May 2021. And all of these resources are available on YouTube and on the Hub platform. These resources have been co-produced with young people, teachers and lecturers. Diolch I bawb am y cydweithrediad and members of the Welsh Youth Parliament as well. And with the support of the Electoral Reform Society. We've asked those of you who are registered for the event to suggest questions for this event, which the panel we have today, a mix of young people and people who work in the youth and education sector, will, I'm sure, be best to answer as we move through this next hour. Yr eitem gyntaf sydd gyda ni beth bynnag, cyn i ni symud i'r drafodaeth ehangach hynny, yw i gyflwyno fideo gan Sally Holland. Y Comisiynydd Plant Cymru wedi methu ymuno gyda ni heddi, ond i ni'n hynod o ddiolchgar fod i wedi rhoi o'i amser i gynhyrchu fideo fer i ni ar gyfer y digwyddiad heddi. Felly, cyn dechrau'r cwestiynau a'r drafodaeth, gadewch i ni glywed gan y Comisiynydd Plant Sally Holland.
Shwmae pawb, Sally Holland ydw i, Comisiynydd Plant Cymru. Mae flin dy fi mod i ddim yn gallu bod gyda chi heddi yn y digwyddiad i siarad am pleidleisio yn yr etholiad nesaf i'r Senedd. Mae'n pwnc sy'n agos i fy nhalon i, a dwi'n hapus iawn i gael y cyfle i siarad tipyn nawr am y pwnc yma. I'm so excited, really, that we've had the change in voting age and that 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in Wales for the first time in the Senedd elections in May 2021. It's going to be so important that we have a good turnout amongst young people for that election. And I know that you as Youth Parliament members and your supporters will be as keen as I will be to promote the right to vote to 16 and 17-year-olds and to make sure that they register and use their vote. I hope that you as young people will be able to come forward with lots of good ideas about how we can encourage young people who are 16 or 17 or nearly 16 to register and how we'll get them to turn up on the day to vote. It's also really important, and young people have told me this over and over again, that everyone who's eligible to vote knows about what it means, how to vote, and something about the background to the Senedd, its powers, and the different political parties and what they stand for. I'll be working hard with my team and with other important partners like the Youth Parliament to make sure that young people get accurate, factual, neutral information to make sure that they can use their vote in an informed way. I think that what will be very important will be that for the first time, politicians will have to really consider how they speak to a younger audience and how they listen to a younger audience and make sure that they are prepared to tackle the issues that are important to young people. As a youth parliament, you have already shown us some of the top issues that concern you most. And that includes, of course, environmental issues, mental health, and what you learn in school and the curriculum. I think it's going to be so important that young people see and hear candidates for the election addressing those issues and many more that young people that are important to young people. And I know that our youth parliamentarians and other young activists will work hard to make sure that those issues are raised. So I look forward to working with Youth Parliament and with others to make sure that young people know about the right to vote, are listened to, and have all the information they need to make 16 and 17-year-olds voting in the election next year a real success. I hope the event goes really well today, and good luck with the discussion and debate. Hwyl am y tro.
Thank you to the Children's Commissioner, Sally Holland there. It almost felt as if she was in the meeting with us. So thank you for your contribution, and thank you, Sally, as well, for being a champion on behalf of young people in Wales, and a champion specifically in this context on introducing votes at 16. And I know you're just as excited as I am at the prospect of young people having the right to that vote. So just before we move on to the discussion, I'll just ask the panelists that we have with us today, mix of young people and some slightly older people working with young people, just to give a flavour of what you do and why you're on the panel today. Just a very short introduction to yourself so that people know who we all are. I better explain who I am to start with then. I'm Ellen Jones, and I'm the Llywydd of the Senedd, the presiding officer of the Welsh Parliament, and I led the introduction of the legislation that has provided the right for young people to have the vote for next year's Senedd elections. So I'll ask Rocío Cifuentes, first, the Chief Executive of Ethnic Minorities and the Youth Support Scheme. Just tell us a little bit about your interest and your role in this discussion, Rocío.
Thank you very much, Ellen. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Rocío Cifuentes. I'm Chief Exec of Ethnic Minorities and Youth Support Team. The charity has been supporting ethnic minority young people in Wales for the last 15 years. And you know, we're so excited that this change is happening in Wales, and not only for the young people, but for Wales itself. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's great that Wales is really leading the way and setting such a fantastic example. So I won't say more for now, but I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rocío. And Jonathan Dawes, you're a member of the Welsh Youth Parliament, I know, but say a little bit about yourself and your interest in this topic.
Yeah, diolch Llywydd, and I'm here again. I'm on another panel with you, so I must be doing something right. So yes, first of all, thank you to the Welsh Youth Parliament for inviting me to speak today on what I know is a crucial topic to young people. So as Llywydd said, my name is Jonathan Dawes, and I represent the Vale of Clwyd constituency in the first ever Welsh Youth Parliament. And I'm really excited for today's discussion because I'm passionate about youth engagement, and I want to inspire as many young people to vote in 2021 to make a real difference on the key issues that matter to them. So I'll stop there and we'll move on and hopefully get cracking with the debate in a bit.
Ardderchog, diolch yn fawr i ti, Jonathan. And Catherine Jones yn bennaeth blwyddyn 12 ag 13, dwi'n meddwl, yn Ysgol Glan.
Bore da Llywydd a Phanelwyr. Dwi'n bennaeth athrawes ac yn bennaeth blwyddyn 12 a 13 yn Ysgol Uwchradd Glan Clwyd yn Llanelwy yn Sir Ddinbych. Rhan yn swyddi naturiol yw i gynghori a chynorthwyo myfyrwyr chweched dosbarth a phobl ifanc ar eu llwybr addysgol. Dwi'n gweld hyrwyddo'r cyflymau i bleidleisio 16 a 17 yn rhan o beth ni'n gallu wneud hefo'r fagloriaeth hefyd. Dwi hefyd yn gwirfoddoli fy pobl ifanc gyda mudiad yr urdd yn lleol ac yn genedlaethol.
Diolch yn fawr, Catherine. And Robil, Mia, you're a volunteer with young people and you're also a student. Tell us something about yourself, where you are.
Hello, my name is Robil Mia, as Ellen said, and I am a college student in Gower College studying engineering. And I also volunteer in East Ethnic Minorities and Youth Support Team. I'm interested in this topic because I'm a young person myself, and you know, I would like to vote for what I would like to impact in my community, to improve my community in getting together, changing, you know, the community and stuff.
Great, thank you, Robil, and it's good to know that we've got people from all over Wales, really. Between the 5 of us here, we are all geographically in different parts of Wales, but we're all in this on the same panel this morning from our various locations. Felly, diolch I bawb am ymuno. Thank you all for joining us. And so let's start a little bit on our discussion for this morning, and let's think a little bit about what are our feelings towards the reduction in the voting age? How do we think that the change in the voting age will have an impact on young people and on the importance the Senedd elections will be to young people? And we've had questions in as well from both Kyle and Rhiannon, who are joining us today as well, thinking about voting age at 16 and whether it'll have a major effect on the 2021 elections. Will there be differences in the kind of campaigns that we have as a result of the voting at 16 and 17, and what difference it could potentially make to some of the results that we have in those elections as well. Maybe I'll go to Jonathan first to give a view on this, because I'm not sure about the others here, but certainly I have, but you have stood election, of course, for the Welsh Youth Parliament, so you know a little bit about elections as well. So what difference do you think for young people will the right to vote in next year's election make? Jonathan?
Yeah. Look, I think the decision to extend, the franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, steps and changes in Welsh democracy since devolution in '99. And I think they present us with a real opportunity to entrench the future of youth engagement in Wales and engage young people in politics like we have never seen before. So really, I think that it's all about engaging young people, and the immediate next steps should be to really hit home the message that, these elections are so important, and the Welsh Parliament, the Senedd, controls so much of young people's lives, and that if they vote, they will make such a difference on, the environment, education, mental health, and that, we need to inspire these young people to vote. And if they do vote, they really can make a positive change.
Robil, you're a young person too. Do you think that young people are excited or up for it, or do you think that there's a lot of work to do over the next few months?
I think that there's a great opportunity for young people because, they can finally let their voices be heard by voting. I think that they will be more interested in politics, so like this can improve like their community around them. It will be a lot of work because some young people might not be interested in politics or voting like that. So this will be a nice challenge, I guess, for young people to start paying attention to politics and voting.
Okay, so the potential is there, is what you're saying there. Rothio, how do you view this in your perspective and in your work, in terms of, do you think it's a game changer for the voice of young people, or should we be a little less enthusiastic in how we think about the potential of this?
I think it is a potential game changer. It is huge. I think, if it goes well, the opportunities for, as others have said, for young people to really be heard and to shape politics and to shape, society around them are fantastic. I think there are some potential pitfalls that we need to be aware of and mitigate those risks. So it's really important that young people are appropriately informed and educated about the whole system and how it works and what the different political parties stand for, because young people, like anyone else, can be, without that information, they can be led down sometimes quite dangerous roads. So it's an opportunity, but also a potential risk. But I think for Wales, I think it's brilliant that for the first time we will have young people from the age of 16 who will be able to play an active role and shape and and make the vision of the future generations vision of ethical and informed and engaged citizens of Wales. To make that vision come true, I think is a fantastic opportunity and a game changer, but there is a lot of work to do, definitely.
Okay, good. A Catherine, perspectif ysgolion a fel athro ar gyfer yr oedran yma, be chi'n feddwl yw'r potensial sydd yna? Microffon, aroswch i'r microffon. Na ni.
Dod yn hwn yn gam pwysig iawn a chadarnhau'n un ieuenctid ni. Mae'n rhoi cyfle iddyn nhw gael mewnbwn a rhoi'r teimlad nhw bod nhw yn lliwio penderfyniadau sy'n cael ei gwneud yng Nghymru. Dwi'n fod yn golygu, dwi'n gobeithio, bydd pobl ifanc yn fwy agored i wrando a chyfranogi mewn trafodaethau gwleidyddol. Mae nifer o'n pobl ifanc ni yng Nghymru trwy gwersi bac nhw, enghraifft, yn dod i ddeall pwysigrwydd gwleidyddiaeth a deddfu, ac felly maen nhw'n cael eu paratoi rhyw raddau ar gyfer bod yn ddinasyddion mwy gwybodus. A hyn dwi'n gobeithio felly'n paratoi nhw i bleidleisio. Maen nhw'n sylweddoli bod penderfyniadau sy'n cael eu wneud yn y bai yng Nghaerdydd, yn y Senedd, yn effeithio arnyn nhw. Wedi'r cyfan, mae pobl ifanc 16 oed, wnaethon nhw gadael addysg llawn amser, maen nhw yn gallu mynd i weithio, maen nhw'n talu trethu, maen nhw'n gallu mynd i'r lluoedd arfog. Mae'n bwysig felly, nawr mae'r cam nesaf ymlaen i bleidleisio yn rhan holl bwysig dwi'n meddwl, a mae'n bwysig bod nhw'n sylweddoli beth sy'n mynd ymlaen yn y Senedd a'r effaith nhw'n gael arnyn nhw. A mae'n dod â Chaerdydd a'r Senedd yn agosach atyn nhw hefyd, achos mae yna dueddiad weithiau pan ydych chi fyny yn y gogledd, efallai bod chi'n meddwl bod yna bellter mawr yn Caerdydd a chi. Does na ddim, ond mae'r bleidlais yma, dwi'n gobeithio, a'r llais maen nhw'n mynd i gael yn mynd i dangos bod nhw yn bwysig. Mae'n gan sicr pwysig ymlaen.
Ac hyd yn oed os oedd y pellter yna'n bodoli cyn y cyfnod coronavirus, ers y cyfnod coronavirus, dyw'r pellter ddim yn bodoli rhagor, achos mae pob un aelod o'r Senedd yn eistedd mewn gwahanol fannau yng Nghymru yn cymryd rhan yn y Senedd via Zoom. Felly mae'r holl beth yna wedi droi benni weired.
Yndi. Lot fwy perthnasol nawr i ryw radd, yn dydy, mae Cymru'n dod yn llai ac yn dod fwy at ei gilydd, dwi'n meddwl.
Yeah, felly, I ni di trafod tyma bach fyna. We've just spoken a little bit there about the potential, and all of us here are excited about the potential, but there are real challenges, as some of you have hinted, to fulfilling that potential, getting young people interested enough to register to vote and making sure that that process works well enough, but also then to turn out and vote, however that vote happens next year in the elections. So inspiring young people to actually get out to vote and making it a process that they feel comfortable with the actual technical process of voting, but also that they feel that their vote will make a difference, and engaging young people with that, and engaging young people with the political parties and making sure that they know the difference between political parties, how they can influence even political parties over the next months in designing their manifestos to have issues that are of interest to young people in the manifestos that the political parties put to the people of Wales. That's also an important important aspect of work. I've always thought that because older people vote, and the statistics on voting show that the older you are, the more likely you are to vote. That's slightly why older people have managed to get bus passes and up until recently reduced TV licenses, because the political parties have worked out that they need to focus their policies on the older generation. Well, now it's a time to get the political parties in Wales to focus their policies on the younger generation, because the younger generation will have an ability to vote them in or vote them out of power. So the vote brings with it a huge amount of influence and power as well, to influence what will happen in the next 5 years in Wales. So just going back to some of these challenges to ensure that young people do feel educated and motivated to go out and vote. What do you think are some of the barriers that will be there for young people not to be bothered to turn out to vote? Robil, do you have an idea of what, your friends, people you know, why they would feel nervous maybe about going out to vote, or what would be the issues that might stop them, you think?
I think that the main challenges could be like, one of them could be young people might be interested in voting, because some might find it boring, they're not into politics, or similar things to that. Also, they might not be educated enough about political thing. They're not given enough information about what they vote on or stuff like that. They don't get like supported enough, I guess. Like, they might not be taught in schools or other areas like that. Another challenge that could be language barriers. I think that some people in Wales who live here could be born in other countries, and they might not know like English or Welsh, so they might not understand what's happening.
Any ways do you think we could help to make that more accessible to young people, both the language issues, but also you talked a little bit about young people just not being interested enough, it not being exciting enough. What other ways do you think that we could all think about making it more exciting for young people?
They can get like educated on politics, like in schools, or like politicians like visiting, give them a lesson or information about all this voting. So this can make young people interested, and they can realize that this is a great opportunity to change society or their community around them.
Do you think it's important that young people like yourselves, like Robil and Jonathan here, are real champions in your communities for using the vote? So it's not just people like me going around and encouraging young people to use their vote, but that it's people like you who are fronting some of the publicity around the new rights that young people have. Is it better that young people talk to young people rather than older people talk to young people? What do you think, Robil?
I think like young people like me and Jonathan can like influence young people because we're around the same age, and they're like listen to us, I guess, more than older people. Yeah, I think that would be better.
Yeah, you're very polite in how you say that. Thank you very much for that. No, but that's very true, probably. Rocío, what do you think are some of the challenges with the young people that you work with and come across in your line of work? How do we meet the potential that we talked about in the previous session?
I think there's a big challenge, as Rabil was saying, to really get young people to believe that their vote can actually make a difference. And I mean, that's true of people of all ages. You know, it's a challenge to convince a lot of people to vote, because a lot of people just say, you know, what difference is my vote going to make? You know, I'm just one person. And the other challenge is that many people, and many young people particularly, struggle to really find a political party that represents them, or is giving voice to their concerns and their priorities. So we don't have very long to convince the political parties, you know, about the changes and the points that they need to put in their manifestos in order to be relevant and speak to the concerns of young people. It would be fantastic if politicians themselves could gradually become more diverse in terms of age and ethnicity and everything else. So we would love to see politicians, and I think young people would definitely want to see politicians who represent the diversity of Wales better than they do currently. And I think, and that's a big job that needs to be done in terms of convincing young people that their vote does matter, it can make a difference, and that they have the power to shape manifestos and political parties and ultimately policies which impact on the state of the world. I think there are some specific challenges. For example, you know, everybody is very au fait and in terms of using digital technology at the moment to reach out to young people, and it is a fantastic tool. However, we need to remember that there are large groups of young people and people of all ages who are still very digitally excluded and don't have the easy access to the internet and to laptops and to Zoom meetings that perhaps we do. So we need to make sure that everybody has equal access to information about the voting system and access to online voting and registering to vote and so on. So, you know, we need to think about the wider challenges affecting different people. We know that in Wales, for example, 12% of the school-age population is from a non-white, non-British background. And we also know that Wales has far higher child poverty rates than other parts of the UK. And within that child poverty rate, certain ethnic minority groups have, again, even higher child poverty rates. So what that means in practice is that these young people are less likely to have all the technology, as I've just mentioned. So we need to provide an equal platform to young people to enable them to use their vote and use their power and use their voice effectively.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, that making sure that everybody has the equal access to not just the voting process, but the information and the engagement that goes before that. And it's easy for some people to just assume that all young people are tech savvy and have the total ability to access information at all times, but that's not the case, is it? Given the issues around poverty that you've alluded to there in particular. So it's important to ensure that the work that we do over the next few months, sorry, not years anymore, few months, ensures that we are providing and targeting our work in particular to those who may be excluded for digital or other social reasons from the information more generally. And also the point that you made, I thought was really important as well, that the political parties who will be engaging with young people for the first time in the context of their vote, don't do it in a tokenistic way where they're just looking for basically more voters, that they really think about how their political party is using the opportunity to engage with younger people, not just in terms of a numbers game of getting their votes, but also in terms of developing new, interesting, exciting policy ideas that are coming from a group of people who haven't been as engaged previously in policy development as well. So yeah, it's not just a numbers game for the political parties, that it means something much more. I think it is, to be fair to the political parties, that most political parties in Wales have really embraced the whole idea of including our young people in our democratic process. So it's been a very positive embracing of that by the majority of the political figures in Wales. Catherine, the role of schools, ochr yr ysgolion, hefyd wedi cael ei drafod fan hyn, a mae rôl arbennig gyda chi oherwydd fod gyda chi'r cysylltiad uniongyrchol yna gyda, falle ddim y cyfan o'r bobl ifanc 16 ag 17, ond yn sicr yr cyfan ohonyn nhw tan iddyn nhw gyrraedd yr oedran o 16. Ac felly mae'r ymwneud o'r ysgolion yn mynd i fod yn hanfodol i gynyddu ymwybyddiaeth a'r wybodaeth sydd gan pobl ifanc dros y misoedd nesaf yma, ac i chi yn brysur fel ysgolion fel mae hi, heb i ni roi cyfrifoldeb newydd ar eich ysgwyddau chi, ond mae cael eich ymwneud a'ch arweiniad chi gyda pobl ifanc yn mynd i fod yn hanfodol i wneud yr llwyddiant o'r potensial hyn.
Mae'n sawl her yn does, fel sydd wedi cael ei crybwyll yn barod. Mae angen cyflwyno'r cysyniad o gyfrestru i bleidleisio a gwrando ar wahanol safbwyntiau gwleidyddol. Dwi'n meddwl yr un ydy'r her i'n pobl ifanc ni ac i bob un sy'n pleidleisio, sef bod rhaid yn cael ei derbwyllo bod eu pleidlais nhw yn mynd i wneud gwahaniaeth. Mae hwn yn her i addysgwyr, ond mae e'n bwysicach ellai'r Senedd ei hun, fel bod y pobl ifanc yn gweld pwrpas a gwerth i'w pleidlais nhw. Mae'n pobl ifanc ni di arfer pleidleisio ar gyfer cynrychiolwyr ysgol nhw, ond wrth gwrs maen nhw'n nabod y cynrychiolwyr yna, yndydyn? Felly, sut yn ni'n mynd i gyflwyno'r pleidiau ac yn y blaen, mae hwn yn bwysig. Dwi'n meddwl her arall ydy sut yn ni'n addysgu pobl ifanc i ddysgu am bwysigrwydd, pwrpas yr etholiad a phwysigrwydd eu pleidlais nhw. Dyn ni'n gorfod addysgu nhw am strwythyr a phwysigrwydd ein Senedd ni, pleidiau, manifestos, fel dyn ni wedi crybwyll. Dwi'n meddwl bod yn her yn sicr i bobl ifanc a phawb arall ydy deall system pleidleisio sydd gennym ni yng Nghymru. Sut yn union mae eu pleidlais yn cyfri o fewn strwythyr etholiadol sydd gennym ni yng Nghymru. Fel nath rhywun deud, Rocky oedd, Rabil deud, ie. Chod mae yna rai pobl sydd gennym nhw ddim diddordeb, a fydden nhw ddim yn cymryd i pleidlais o ddifri, ond dwi'n meddwl mae prin fydd y rhai yna. Mae'n pobl ifanc ni, fel dyn ni'n gweld efo'r ddau yma sydd gen i bore yma, maen nhw'n siarad yn hiawdl iawn. Maen nhw'n dechrau cael diddordeb yn gwleidyddiaeth, a dwi'n meddwl bod hwn yn fwy, yn y 2 wythnos dwi wedi bod nôl yn ysgol, mae plant yn trafod pethau mwy am wleidyddiaeth, achos maen nhw'n gweld sut mae gwleidyddion gwahanol wedi ymdrin ar sefyllfa digynsail yma, dyn ni yn efo ar hyn o bryd. A dwi'n meddwl bod na sparc wedi bod yn ddiweddar i drafod pethau fyna, trafod gwleidyddiaeth. Ond yn sicr, dwi'n gweld mae bydd gen ni yn yr ysgol rôl i helpu yn pobl ifanc ni i ddeall a sut i bleidleisio.
Ie, a fel ych chi'n gweud, Catherine, mae pobl ifanc yn gyfarwydd a pleidleisio, achos maen nhw'n pleidleisio yn yr ysgolion am eu cynrychiolwyr nhw ac wedi wneud dros yr amser, ond mae ymwybyddiaeth o'r system pleidleisio ar gyfer etholiadau seneddol yn wahanol, a mae nabod yr unigolion hefyd yn bwysig, achos mae pleidlais mewn etholiad Senedd yn mynd i fod yn bleidlais ar gyfer y bobl sy'n eich cynrychioli chi'n lleol, yn hytrach na'r bobl sydd i chi'n gyfarwydd â gweld fel prif weinidog Mark Drakeford neu gweinidogion, felly mae e'n gweithio ar lefelau gwahanol. Oedd ymhleidlais gyntaf i gyda llaw mewn ysgol pan sefes i etholiad yn 1983 mewn mock election in the 1983 general election a long time ago. My first experience of both voting and of standing in an election was as, believe it or not, Jonathan, the Conservative candidate in the school election in Lampeter Comprehensive School. I'm no longer a Conservative, and I wasn't for very long ever, and I was never a member, just for the record. But I'm a Plaid Cymru proud member these days. So I think it's an important point to make, mind you, that people can change their mind on political parties as well. Just because they may have been a supporter of a political party at one point, they can change their mind, and young people in particular should be allowed to change their minds about their political allegiances. That's an important thing to remember. Just because you've been possibly a member of one party or even a supporter of a party when you're young, in 2 years' time you can change your mind completely and be a supporter of another party, and you don't have to pledge allegiance at any point during that process, and that fluidity is important in the democratic process as well. Jonathan, your views on some of the challenges for young people in accessing their right to vote and in using their vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, since I was elected as Welsh Youth Parliament member, I spent probably the last 18 months or so going around the constituency and beyond, speaking to hundreds of young people. And following today's discussion, I'm of course going to be going to Ysgol Gan Clwyd to come and see Catherine and all the politically engaged young people, of course. And that's going to be top of my priorities once I'm allowed to. So I'm looking forward to that invitation, Catherine. But yeah, I think that, you know, as I've said, that this is an incredible opportunity for young people. But I think the key message that when I spoke to young people, I spoke to my fellow Welsh Youth Parliament colleagues too, is ensuring that, you know, young people understand what the Welsh Parliament is, the role of an MS, what the Welsh Government has power to do. And I think that that's key in ensuring the education side, that they know what they're voting for and they know how they can vote. But two, it's down to the same message again for me, and it's encouraging young people and showing young people that their vote will make an impact. They can make a difference, and that, you know, if it's just by voting, that they can really influence Welsh politics and the decisions that are made. So for me, the key to getting a high turnout and young people engaged is through making sure we have the right education in place. So we know we're going to get that high turnout, and that they're going to be engaged for years to come.
Okay, I think you've moved us on nicely there, Jonathan, to the next area of discussion then. And questions have come in from Lewis and Rhiannon around political education in particular, and how can we ensure that there's a good level of political education, that it's correct and easily accessible and available to young people ahead of the election next year. And what about those 16 to 17-year-olds who just aren't ready to vote? What can be designed to help them understand the content of political education? Catherine, you're probably, in terms of the school setting, best posed to answer some of this. You know, how do you get the content of this, the right balance of it and right accessibility of the information for the young people? How do you get that right?
Mae hwnna'n anodd yn dydi, achos fel addysgwyr, dyn ni'n eisiau dangos unrhyw fath o duedd ac yn y blaen hefo gwleidyddiaeth. Dwi yn gweld mantais trwy pethau fatha mae'r fagloriaeth yn cyflwyno gwleidyddiaeth a ddim unrhyw fatha manifestos ac yn y blaen. A sut mae gwleidyddiaeth a deddfu yn cael effaith ar gwahanol agweddau. Yn sicr mae gen addysg le yn hyn. Dwi'n meddwl fod y rhai pethau dwi wedi gweld ar YouTube ac ar hwb yn barod yn ddefnyddiol iawn, pethau bach byr catchy sydd eisiau, a dyna be dwi wedi gweld hyd yn hyn, felly dwi'n edrych ymlaen at weld y deunyddiau newydd sydd gennych chi, sydd wedi dod ymlaen heddiw, ie. A chi jyst gorfod edrych ar yr cyfryngau cymdeithasol ar hyn o bryd mae pobl ifanc yn defnyddio. Mae yna lot o pop-ups yn dod i fyny, mae rhai da gan Llywodraeth Cymru wedi bod yn ymddangos yn ddiweddar. A mae pobl ifanc licio gwrando ar yr dylanwadwyr yma, ar yr influences yma. Felly allai bod gennyn nhw i rôl i helpu i liwio barn pobl neu gael nhw i bleidleisio. Mae pobl ifanc yn edrych i fyny yn dydyn nhw ar rhai o'r pobl enwog yma, so mae'n un ffordd ymlaen, pobl ffilm etholiad, canwyr poblogaidd ac yn y blaen. Mae'r urdd, dwi'n meddwl, di llwyddo'n ddiweddar hefyd yn dda iawn ar ei cyfryngau cymdeithasol i gyflwyno gwybodaeth, so ella fod modd defnyddio rhai o bobl ifanc yr urdd sydd wedi bod yn vlogio yn ddiweddar i hybu'r cysyniad yma o bleidleisio. Mae gen i nifer o fidiadau dylanwadol iawn yng Nghymru bysa'n gallu helpu'n pobl ifanc ni. Dwi wedi crybwyll yr urdd, ffermwyr ifanc i ddefnyddio eu llais. Aelodau seneddol ifanc, bysa'n ni yn licio gwadd Jonathan i ddod i'r ysgol. Mae'n siaradwr arbennig o dda i siarad efo'n pobl ifanc ni, so cysyllta efo fi. Mae'r fagloriaeth, oedd yr hen gwrs bagloriaeth, o'n i arfer mwynhau gwadd ein gwleidyddion lleol ni i mewn, i wneud panel hawl i holi. Ac o'n i'n meddwl bod yn rhoi cyflwyniad da i'n pobl ifanc ni o gallu gweld pwy oedd y gwleidiau, oedden nhw'n ateb cwestiynau, oedden nhw'n gosod iddyn nhw, a o'n i'n meddwl bod yn dod o gwleidyddiaeth yn fwy byw. Mae'r cwrs di newid, a dwi ddim wedi bod yn wneud hwn yn ddiweddar, ond mae'n sicr yn rhywbeth dwi'n meddwl sy'n ei licio ail gyflwyno. Mae pobl ifanc licio cael chydig bach o banter di'r gair dwi'n meddwl nhw'n defnyddio hefo'n gwleidyddion ni, ac yn sicr oedd yr rhai oedden ni'n cael ei mewn yn arbennig iawn hefo'n myfyrwyr ni. Felly mae hwnna'n ffordd ymlaen hefyd dwi'n meddwl. Fod nhw ddim yn bobl sydd jyst yn bodoli yn y Senedd yn trafod pethau, ond fod nhw yn bobl go iawn sydd yn dod allan i ysgolion. Fydd dod allan ella ddim yn bosib ar hyn o bryd, ond mae Zoom, mae Teams, neu fel dyn ni'n defnyddio yn ysgol, yn llawn cystal, yn dydi?
Robil, do you think that that's a good idea to get more politicians, those people who will be standing elections next year, to hold panel sessions with young people to try and engage the debate with young people directly? Do you think that would be helpful, or do you think that it should be other people who, not the politicians themselves, but others who seek to influence young people to get them to vote? Robil?
Sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Do you think it should be do you think it's a good idea to get politicians themselves, those people who are standing election, the candidates next year, to be going around schools in particular, possibly to hold panel sessions across the political parties to have that debate? Or should we be thinking more about the use of social media to have access to young people, or to have that engagement? What do you think are the tools for doing this job?
I think that, yeah, politicians, should go around schools giving like lessons, I guess, to young people about information about politics, voting, what they can do and what opportunities they have. Also, using social media is a good way to get them involved, because, as Catherine said, young people use social media a lot, and pop-ups could be a good way to send them information. They could probably read it, get interested in it. Also, like, I guess getting involved with younger people, like who are interested in politics, could like be role models. They can give out information saying why it's good to vote, be interested in politics, and they can influence more young people to get involved.
Yeah, and we've got two role models here today in you, Robil, and in Jonathan. So that's great. I hope you'll be helping us champion this over the next few months. I'm sure you will. Well, that's why you're here today as well, as part of that championing. Jonathan, I know that the Youth Parliament has done quite a bit of work on the curriculum and life skills in the curriculum, and some discussion within that on the role of the democratic process as well, and how we improve the learning of the democratic process in Wales. How do you see the role of schools in particular in advocating or supporting the information that young people need to get to be able to access the vote next year?
Yeah, I'm not being funny. This is my perfect question. This is, life skills and the curriculum, education is something I spoke about time and time again. And I completely agree with Catherine. I think that, schools have got to play a key role. But of course, I think that when it comes to communicating the message and engaging with young people, it's got to be more of a Wales collective effort between lots of different stakeholders, lots of different people. But schools certainly play a key role in this, in ensuring that young people are getting the correct information, and ensuring that, as I said earlier, that young people know about the Welsh Parliament, the Welsh Government, who their Senedd members are and who they could be. But picking up on a point before, I think it's absolutely crucial that I know you were saying before, Llywydd, about influencers. Now, I have a great story about when I visited a school just a couple of weeks before lockdown in my constituency. And we were talking about the Welsh Youth Parliament elections, and they said, and one of the pupils said to me, "Jonathan, I voted for you." And I said, "Oh, why did you vote for me? And thank you very much. I appreciate your vote." And they said, "Well, Joe Allen did a video on the Welsh Youth Parliament website and got me to register to vote." So I think that shows in action how important influencers are, and how they will get so many more young people registered to vote and voting in 2021.
Okay, so we'll try and get Joe Allen on the case, even though he'll be fit and training hopefully for the Euro Championships next June. But let's try and see if we can get him before he starts on his football training for that. Absolutely, I think our sports stars have been great in helping us get this far, and I think that they have a lot that they can hopefully offer to have that discussion with young people and enthuse young people about the right to vote in Wales next spring. It's not all about schools, though, of course, and both Grant and Sean have provided questions to us about the engagement with young people outside the school setting. Young people go to school, of course, many of them will still be in school or college in 16, 17, but their life is not totally the schools. Rothrio, you may have some comments on what are the roles of the wider youth sector in helping engage and inform young people in their new ability to vote next year.
Yes, thank you. I think, I was going to make the point that it's not every 16 and 17-year-old is in school, as you've just said. So colleges, workplaces, and the youth sector they're all really important stakeholders. So I agree with Jonathan that it needs to be a multi-stakeholder approach. The youth sector is particularly important in that it's very diverse and it can effectively target specific groups, whether that's ethnic minority, young people who may be carers, young people with disabilities, LGBT young people. So there is such a variety of organisations working in the youth sector, and that is the strength, really, that it is diverse, and it can very effectively target and reach young people who may not be that well served or that well reached by mainstream institutions, and including schools. So I think it does have to be across the board, and and it has to be a range of methods. So as important as social media is, we can't forget the importance and the strength of the old-fashioned face-to-face discussions, having those robust conversations in safe places with people that you trust, as youth workers are usually. So that is really, really important to maintain and invest in those places and those workers, because it's a very unique skill set that needs to be protected and strengthened, particularly if we're going to be having this newly enfranchised group of young people. But I also wanted to, if I may go back to the point about, the idea of having politicians visit schools. I think it would be great, but I think it's also, it needs to be preceded by really robust political education about everything we've talked about, how the voting system works. We need to give young people far stronger critical thinking skills, so they are really well equipped to interpret and critique messages that they're hearing from politicians, but also on social media. We all know that increasingly on social media we have our own echo chambers, which leads to people's views, including young people, but everybody's views, I fear, are becoming increasingly polarized, because you just read things that you already agree with, and you end up just having that view but more strongly, and you just have friends who also think the same as you. So we really need to protect spaces and people like youth groups, where you can meet people with a different point of view, and you can have that healthy discussion. We've all also heard a lot in recent years about the dangers of fake news. So it's really important that we equip young people more effectively with these skills, and that needs to happen not just when young people are 16. It needs to happen, from day one in the education system, so that by the time they're 16, they really understand how to analyze messages, political messages, things they read in the media. They need to be able to unpick what politicians are saying and work out why people might be only given part of the truth or presenting things in a particular way. I think all of that at the moment are not skills that are really well developed in young people, and I'm sure that's why the youth parliament has highlighted the importance of life skills in the curriculum. Because if we don't give young people those skills, and we just invite politicians from, there's a range of political parties, then that in itself, just to do that alone could be quite dangerous.
Well, those are really important points there, and they move on to the final few questions we've had in as well, from both Chloe and Kai Phillips, who is a member of the Youth Parliament, and on the role that political parties have in their campaigning, and how do we help young people to have the agility and the ability to be able to absorb the information and then have the right to question and challenge that back. And how do we get to a point where young people, and this is an issue for wider society, as you've also alluded to, that there is no just right and wrong. There are a myriad of different views on all kinds of different issues, and every view has a right to be heard and should not be shouted down, but it should be expressed and discussed, and healthily given the opportunity to do that. And there are big challenges in our wider political debate, but they are particularly challenging for young people as they start their analysis of what political choices are all about, not just in terms of choosing a political party, but in choosing which particular standpoint that they feel most comfortable in taking on all kinds of different issues. I'm going to go to you, Catherine, first on this before I ask maybe the two young people to express a view on this. Getting a lot of information to young people is just one thing, isn't it? How do you then help young people to be able to analyze that and discuss it in a healthy context where people can have, even in a small group of young people, can have different views, and all those views should equally be respected, even though they can be challenged at all times?
Dwi'n meddwl mae ysgolion heddiw, mae yna lot fwy o gyfle i blant, i bobl ifanc, i drafod pethau. Dyn ni'n sicr yn cael lot o drafodaethau fewn yn gwersi ni yn yr ysgol. Mae'r fagloriaeth, dwi'n meddwl dwi wedi crybwyll yn y sawl gwaith, yn rhoi'r cyfle yma i ddatblygu sgiliau a sgiliau meddwl yn feirniadol trwy'r holl fentre maen nhw'n gorfod wneud. A dwi yn meddwl bod nhw'n cael cyfle i drafod pethau oherwydd dydyn nhw ddim yn deall cysyniadau gwleidyddol a sut mae gwleidyddiaeth yn penderfynu ar sut mae rhai agweddau economi yn digwydd yn eu cymunedau nhw. So dwi yn meddwl bod nhw yn cael cyfle i drafod yn eitha helaeth yn fwy yn sicr na pan o'n i yn yr ysgol blynyddoedd maith yn ôl. Mae lleisiau pobl ifanc yn cael eu clywed yn yr ysgol, ym mhob ysgol, ddim jyst yn ysgol Glan Clwyd. Mae gennym nhw cyngor ysgol, lle mae plant yn barod i rhoi i pwyntio nhw mlaen am yr hyn sydd yn eu poeni nhw, a maen nhw'n leisiau cryf iawn mewn ysgolion, achos os di plant yn mynd at, disgyblion yn mynd at yr uwch dîm ac yn gofyn am bethau, mae yna fwy o siawns ella fydden nhw'n cael yr penderfyniad yna, yn hytrach na bod nhw'n anfon athro i fynegu barn am ryw bwnc a bethau sydd eisiau newid. A mae yna nifer o bethau yn ysgol wedi cael ei newid oherwydd llais yn disgyblion ni. Felly, y cyfle i fod yn agored hefo nhw ac i drafod hefo nhw yn sicr yn bwysig. Am nifer o bethau sydd yn bwysig iddyn nhw. Dwi'n gwybod bod hwnna'n gwestiwn arall allan, pethau sydd wedi dod yn amlwg. A pethau sydd yn eu pryderu nhw am yr ymgylchedd ac yn y blaen, hwnna'n beth sy'n ni'n deud ar hyn o bryd.
A mae'r materion hynny wedi ymlygu hunain yn y Senedd Ieuenctid hefyd, wrth i'r Senedd Ieuenctid i ddatblygu gwaith. Mae'n amlwg fod yr materion sy'n ymwneud â dyfodol y blaned a dyfodol iach i'n pobl ifanc ni. Mae hwnna'n materion amlwg iawn.
A cyflogi safswm yn rhywbeth sydd wedi dod yn amlwg hefyd iawn efo rhai o'r chweched yn yr wythnosau diwetha. Dwi'n meddwl bod nhw'n gweld sut mae'r economi mynd ac yn y blaen, a maen nhw'n dechrau meddwl am eu dyfodol nhw a'i haddysg nhw. Hwnna'n bryder mawr iddyn nhw ar hyn o bryd. Ac annibyniaeth i Gymru un arall sydd wedi codi wrth i fi drafod efo nhw yn yr wythnosau diwetha, sy'n ddiddorol iawn.
Mae yna dipyn o drafodaeth wedi bod ar hynna yn yr Senedd hefyd.
Maen nhw'n barod iawn i fynegu barn ac i ddeitha chi sut maen nhw'n teimlo am bethau, os ydych chi'n rhoi'r cyfle iddyn nhw.
A dyna be ni'n sôn am, yn dyfer, rhoi'r cyfle i bobl ifanc i gael i roi barn ac i arwain i drafodaeth gyhoeddus o'i safbwynt nhw sy'n gallu bod yn blaenoriaethau gwahanol i oedrannau eraill yn cymdeithas ni. I'm going to give the last few words because, believe it or not, we've reached our hour. It's been a really great discussion. It's flowed really well, and I think we've had interesting perspectives and ideas from all parts. But I'm going to give the final words to young people here. Robil first, and then Jonathan. Robil, how do you think that young people that you know of in your community, in your college, how do you think they feel about the idea of getting involved in discussing various issues that are important to them? And do you feel that young people in your crowd have different views on different things and argue a little bit politely on different issues, and that's all? Do they understand that that's a political debate and that's what politics is about people discussing issues that can be about you know, what the skateboard park looks like to the future of Wales and independence of Wales, or all of these discussions are political small p in the end. Do you think young people, you know, Robil, are having those discussions already, and now it's just a matter of channeling all that activity into the democratic process for them for next year?
Firstly, I don't know anyone who's talking about you know, political things, but I think, like, you know, this would be a great opportunity. And now I think politics should be like a well-known discussed thing, because, you know, now that 16-year-olds can vote, start like come together and voting for what they think that they would like to improve in their community. They should like start discussing at like a younger age and start like learning, so that when they're at the right age to vote, they know a lot of things.
I think that's a really good point, Robil, because this isn't about just the 16 and 17-year-olds. And at that point, when you turn 16, you start to have all this information thrust upon you. You know, this is a process for years in advance of that, where you were gaining all these skills and information, and then you are ready by the time you're 16 to exercise all that information into a democratic process. So it shouldn't turn up on your doorstep just when you're 16. That's a really important point you've just made there for all of us in designing, you know, a democratic process for young people. And Jonathan, a final word from you for all of us. You're the youth parliamentarian here. You're obviously very engaged in these issues yourself personally. So what are your hopes then for the election next year in 2016? Not 2016, what am I saying? In 2021?
Yeah, well, Llywydd, you'll be shocked to know I have strong opinions on this. I believe that what I would like to see now in an ideal world is we get a fantastic turnout of young people next time. We have parties that tailor their manifestos, that focus on youth issues, if it's better environmental regulations, increased access to mental health service, you know, great policy around the new curriculum. That's what I want to see. And my final message will be to all young people: vote, vote, vote. Make a change. Make sure you vote next year, so young people are empowered across Wales and are involved in decision making.
Wel, ardderchog, Jonathan. Dyna ddiwedd arbennig i'r sesiwn, dwi'n meddwl. A dwi eisiau diolch i Jonathan ac i Robil yn enwedig i ddod yma i drafod materion o bersbectif pobl ifanc, ac hefyd i roddiog i Catherine am gyfrannu hefyd o'i gwahanol bersbectif nhw. Diolch i chi gyd am fod yn barod i gydweithio gyda ni fel Senedd i hyrwyddo y cyfle newydd sydd gan bobl ifanc Cymru i ddefnyddio i pleidlais ac i ddylanwadu ar y polisïau yn Senedd ni'r dyfodol sy'n mynd i effeithio gymaint mwy ar ein pobl ifanc ni nag unrhyw un arall mewn cymdeithas. Felly mae'n gyfle cyffrous, ond fel ych chi gyd wedi nodi, mae yna heriau, mae yna sialens i ni gyd i greu yr amgylchiadau sydd yn hwyluso gymaint â phosib o'n pobl ifanc ni i ddefnyddio eu hawliau newydd nhw. Felly, diolch i bawb sydd wedi cymryd rhan yn y panel yma'r bore yma. Mae wedi cael ei ddarlledu'n fyw, ac fe fydd ar gael hefyd i bobl ifanc ag unrhyw un i wylio yn ystod yr wythnosau nesaf yma. A diolch i bawb gyfrannodd hefyd drwy fod yn rhan o'r digwyddiad, ac wedi cyflwyno cwestiynau hefyd i ni fel panel i gael i trafod. Felly diolch i chi gyd a pob hwyl i chi. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much.